Hey, I'm Jack. Let me tell you about my girlfriend Lisa. We'd been fighting a lot. In my mind, it's her fault, because I'm a pretty laid-back guy. I mean, she's the one who's stressed out all the time. She can never just leave her worries at the office, you know? She'd always say her job was more stressful than mine. She's an attorney at a law firm downtown. But I was never interested in winning any sort of contest about whose job was more stressful. I didn't even like hearing about her job. I have a job too, you know. I'm a video game tester, but you don't see me wigging out about it every day. Most people, including Lisa, think I get paid to sit in my sweatpants all day and play video games. And that's just not true. Sometimes I wear shorts. Anyway, back to Lisa. She's the youngest lawyer at her firm. And she wants to be taken seriously, which is why I guess she takes her job super seriously. Too seriously, if you ask me. Her latest client, Chuck, works at an investment bank. Chuck was in trouble because he was accused of embezzling a ton of money from investors. So he hired Lisa to be his lawyer. Chuck worked at one of the biggest banks on Wall Street, and luckily, his boss had his back. Chuck's boss was none other than the bigwig CEO of the bank, billionaire Richard Worthington. He never believed that Chuck stole a penny from anyone. In fact, Worthington told Lisa that the money in question went missing after their bank was hacked by Russians. Lisa thought this case could be her big break. What a huge client! And she'd be exposing an international conspiracy, no less. She started spending even more time at work. I almost never saw her. She came home late one night. I was still up playing video games. I complained that she spent all her time at her lame job, and she complained that I was being a hypocrite. "You're still working too," she said. I told her, "For your information, I'm actually off the clock. This is for leisure." She didn't seem to like that, and she made me sleep on the couch. But I was the one who lawyered her. Since we weren't getting along, we decided to see a relationship therapist. The therapist told us we needed to be more compassionate and put ourselves in each other's shoes. To this end, she wanted to try a more out-of-the-box hypnosis technique on us. She took out a crystal pendulum and swung it back and forth while she had us stare at it together. I don't really remember what happened after that, because I think I blacked out. The next thing I remember is waking up the following morning as Lisa. It took me a little while to figure that out, and it's a weird feeling to describe, but I wasn't in my body anymore. I was in Lisa's body. And get this, Lisa woke up in my body. What did that witch doctor therapist do to us? We hurried over to her office and demanded that she change us back. But she looked at us like we were crazy. She thought we were playing a trick on her or something, and asked us to leave. When we said no, she called security on us and kicked us out. It was almost time for Lisa to get to work, but she realized she couldn't go to her job like this. So she told me that just for today, I needed to go to her office. As her. I didn't want to at first. Why couldn't she just take a sick day? But Lisa refused. Her job was way too important. So I sucked it up and went to her office. Worthington was already there. When I went to shake his hand, he tried to kiss it. Gross! Was he always like this? "What do you mean?" he said. I said, are you always kissing Lisa's hand and flirting with her and stuff like that?" He was confused. "Why are you talking in the third person?" I'll admit, the thought did cross my mind that maybe Lisa and this prick were having an affair. Maybe that's why she was coming home late all the time. I yelled at him, "Are we having an affair?" He said, "No." And I said, "Good. Let's keep it that way." Then he and Chuck sat down with me, and they just stared at me like they were waiting for me to talk. I said, "What?" Then Chuck asked me something or other about our defense strategy. So I just asked him, "Did you do it?" He said, "Of course not." So I said, "All right, cool. We're good then." And I told him to get out of my office. I got called into the boss's office after that. He'd heard what had happened and chewed me out. He told me that Chuck's legal fees were being paid entirely by Worthington. That made this a huge client, so he warned me not to mess this up. When I came home, I found Lisa playing video games. She asked me how work went. I told her it was fine. She pressed me for more details. But I wanted to know more details about this Worthington character. "Oh, him. I think he likes me," she said. I knew it! Lisa told me to calm down and that she always kept it professional. Besides, even if she was into him, she'd never do anything to jeopardize the biggest case of her career. "Are you into him?" I asked. She said, "Are you asking if I'd rather be with a billionaire than with a slacker who stays at home all day and plays video games?" For some stupid reason, no. All right, fine. I believed her. She could have said it nicer, though. The next morning we woke up, and we were still in each other's bodies. When was this going to end? Whatever. We really didn't have time to freak out about it because I had to go to work again. I mean, to Lisa's work. When I got there, Worthington kissed my hand again, so I punched him in the face. All right, in my defense, I have nothing against him kissing my hand. I do, however, have a problem with him kissing my girlfriend's hand. Just because this guy's super rich doesn't mean he can go around doing whatever he wants. I got called into my boss's office again, and he told me that Chuck and Worthington had left the firm and were looking for other lawyers, and that I was fired. Oops. When I told Lisa that night, she flipped out. She said she worked so hard to get where she was, and I'd ruined it all, and I was lucky that Worthington wasn't pressing charges. She sent me back to the couch and told me to do whatever it took to get her job back. So the next morning, I met with her boss and asked him, if I can make amends and get our big client back, will you rehire me? He accepted, and that made me feel pretty good. Maybe I had some lawyer skills in me. So I called up Worthington to apologize and see if he'd come back to the firm. He said yes, but under one condition: if you go on a date with me. Normally, I'd want to punch the guy, but I knew Worthington crushed on Lisa, so I took advantage. That's right, I used my feminine wiles. That night, I told Lisa the good news. I can get her job back, but I'd have to go out with Worthington. I thought she'd be upset, but she must have been desperate for her job back because she said, "Great, go date Worthington. Marry him for all I care. Do whatever you have to do." She was probably kidding about the marriage part. Her point was to get Worthington back at all costs and crush this case. So I started studying up on the law with her and developing a defense strategy. If I was stuck in Lisa's body with Lisa's job, I had to follow through on all this and make things right for her. The more I studied, the more I got into it. Lisa's job is kind of interesting. The law protects innocent people and punishes wrongdoing. I mean, I already knew that. But to be a part of the justice process is pretty cool. Later that night, I went on my date with Worthington. He wanted me to meet him on his yacht. When he greeted me, I could tell he was afraid to kiss my hand this time. He asked for a dance under the moonlight, but I was eager to discuss the case. He promised we can discuss it after one dance. I said, "You promise?" He said, "Cross my heart." And so, I did the robot. "That's not what I meant," he said. "Sorry, those were the stated terms of the promise. You should have been more specific." I was getting pretty good at this lawyering thing. We started talking about his employee Chuck and how to prove his innocence. That's when Worthington showed me some evidence he'd collected. A stack of transaction records showing that the funds mysteriously disappeared around the time of the hack. We continued talking this over as we ate dinner under the stars. It was actually kind of nice. And the food was so good. But as soon as I got what I needed, I left. After dessert, of course. When I came home to Lisa, I showed her Worthington's records and all the evidence of the Ukraine hack. Lisa stopped. "Did you say the Ukraine hack?" she said. I said, "Yeah, why?" She said, "He told me it was Russia." That didn't add up. "Let me see those bank records again," she said. So she poured through them all night and did a deeper forensic analysis, which showed that these statements were forged. I asked her, why would Worthington forge his own bank statements? Then she looked at me and said, "Because he's the one who stole the money." Whoa. As huge as this was, I was even more impressed with Lisa's skills. She's so good at her job. She's a wizard. The next day, I met with her boss and told him everything. That was great news because we could prove Chuck's innocence. But he didn't seem happy about that. He got real serious and said, "Look, the point is not to win cases, it's to make the firm money. And Worthington is bankrolling this whole thing. So if he goes down, we go down." I was confused. "So what are you saying?" The boss got even more serious. "I'm saying we look the other way on this and do whatever Worthington needs us to do." I told him, "But that would be wrong. He's a thief." But the boss wouldn't budge. I couldn't believe it. We just uncovered a massive crime and he wanted to stay mum on the whole thing. And I wanted no part of it. So I quit. After all this trouble, I ended up losing Lisa's job anyway. But when I told her what happened, she said I did the right thing and that she was proud of me. And I had developed an appreciation for her work as an upholder of the law. I told her I was proud of her too. Then we hugged. And when we did, I felt a jolt. And when we did, somehow we switched back. I told her I was sorry that I ever complained about her working so hard, and that from now on, I'd be more supportive. I understood now why her work was so important. Lisa got another job with the state and ended up helping to prosecute that crooked Worthington. This was an even more demanding job. But now that I knew how important her work was, I was a lot nicer about it. Things were going so well between us that we didn't need to go to therapy anymore. When the therapist sent us off after our last session, she reminded me, a good Jack makes a good Jill. Have you ever wondered what you'd learn about your loved ones by living their life? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden wisdom stories. Remember, when you share our stories, you're sharing wisdom.